Cloud. Alrighty. So on your screen, hold on a second. All right. When we were together last 2 weeks ago on the 2nd of April, the total confirmed count for the coronavirus, it was about 400,000. As we go on to the next slide, it is now 2 weeks later, and it's 2 million. So things have changed dramatically in a very, very short period of time, but I also want to make sure that we're able to maintain some perspective on what is being shared with us as well. So what I wanted to share with you is just looking at the United States. And as we know, this is a worldwide circumstance, but we just want to narrow it down to help us in this conversation with just looking at the United States. There are about 333 million people in the United States. And so far, about 26,000 people have died. And I just want you to extrapolate the difference between 333 million and 26,000. And what's important to understand is when it's all said and done, which will probably take us about 2 to 3 years for us to get through this cycle and put people in the pockets they belong in, there are lots of different groups that we can fall into. And part of the challenge that we have is in this situation, we have determined often that we're going to be in the final group of the 26,000. But it's important to understand that there are other groups that we can and will most likely fall into. As I said, the general population is 333 million. There'll be individuals who are just have never been exposed and are not carriers. Then there'll be other individuals who, excuse me one second. There'll be other individuals, as I said, that'll be non-carriers. There'll be some that are carriers and that were asymptomatic, never showed any symptoms. There'll be some individuals who were carriers and had minor symptoms. There'll be some individuals who were carriers that had minor and or major symptoms that were able to stay at home. And there were some individuals who were carriers that had major symptoms that were hospitalized. And there'll be some individuals who had major symptoms who ended up in the ICU, and there'll be some individuals who had major symptoms and passed away. But I think it's important to keep in mind the extrapolation that we often have of believing that we're going to be in one group versus another. It's going to take some time for us to figure out where this all falls. So it's important to just keep that perspective on the largeness of the population of 333 million and the smallness of the individuals who have passed away. So the next slide I'd like to go over with you is what are the challenges that we have on the horizon. As we all know, we're trying to control the spread and the exposure. The next issue is the issue of testing and vaccination, and it's not in that order. We could go from controlling the spread or exposure directly to vaccinations, but in the interim of not having a vaccine, major efforts are being made to test so we know what the numbers look like. After that stage, and the stage we're really beginning to get into, is the issue of mental health and beginning to address the needs of this circumstance because of the worldwide nature of it, and everyone feeling the impact of it, that the mental health needs need to be addressed because it's not something that has left anyone behind. But as we cope with that and begin to open up our society again, we'll have some challenges as it relates to mental health. And mental health, to put it in the simplest terms, is often about helping people change their perception and understand where their perception is coming from. And so that's often the challenge, and that can be done with counseling, that can be done with medications and counseling, that can be done with environmental changes. But again, the work that's being done under the umbrella of mental health is working on the perception that a person has and trying to get them to consider other alternatives, understand it better, respond to it better. So that's going to be our next major challenge, is the issue of mental health. And then, as we've continued to keep highlighting every 2 weeks, is that this issue of congregate settings and open events, the risk, the exposure, the mitigation. So I heard this morning that they're considering allowing for baseball and football and basketball to resume, however, with no audience. Now, the problem is with that is the audience pays for those events to happen. And so the question is, how will that happen? But that's an example of a mitigation. It allows for us to enjoy the sport, but we won't be able to enjoy the sport being within 50 or 100 feet of what's going on. We have to do that from some other location that isn't so close. So again, those are the challenges. Those are the conversations that we'll continue to undertake over the foreseeable future. Again, a reminder of all the things that we're supposed to be looking out for: the fever, a cough, shortness of breath. People have seen some gastrointestinal issues, fatigue and being tired, lack of smell and or taste. Again, some of these symptoms are unraveling as time goes on, but the major ones are fever, cough, and shortness of breath. What can we do to help prevent the spread of this respiratory disease? Is to avoid close contact with people, especially when we know that they're sick, to cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue and then throw the tissue in the trash. And I want to just highlight, coughing into your arm, that is not what is suggested, is that you carry tissues with you, you cough, sneeze into that, and you discard that, as opposed to doing on your clothing where if you have the virus, that will stay there and someone could potentially touch it because they touched your arm. You want to avoid touching your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And when in public, we'll go over this a little bit in another slide as well, but the advice, and if not, the directive from government is to wear a mask when in public or serving the public. So that's another thing that we can do to limit the spread. Clean and disinfect frequently objects and items that are touched. So example, in the hospitals, they're seeing a lot of contamination based on computer equipment. So wiping down keyboards and the mouse and other things where people may touch as a high traffic item would be seen as something that is prudent. Stay at home when you're sick, except to get medical care. Wash your hands with soap and water. Soap and water takes priority over hand sanitizer. To use soap and water and to wash for at least 20 seconds. Those are all things that are known to limit the spread of the virus. Something we'll be sharing with you is just a suggestion about a travel kit that we all learn to walk around with hand sanitizer, gloves, tissues, mask, disinfectant wipes and or spray. And as of Sunday, we're all being required to make sure, as we're doing work with the public, and the work that we all here do is with the public, that we're wearing a mask and that we're utilizing gloves. So we have placed as much of an order as we can for the mask. You should see them out. I see some of you on camera with them on, and that's wonderful. Please continue to do that. So we're making the N95 mask available, but there are other masks that you can make that are homemade. As we know, they're not as effective, but they're better than nothing. We have lots of gloves here in the Tillman office, and they've been decentralized out to other offices. If you need any of that stuff, be in touch with leadership, and we'll make sure that that stuff gets out to you. But again, there's a travel kit of 5 and a work kit of 2 effective Sunday. Again, we just highlighted what we shared with you before, that any of the things on the top row are really helping pretty much consistently with the virus. Anything on the bottom, is not so much helpful. But again, something is often better than nothing. I want to ask a question, and I'm going to try to make this larger. And I'm going to choose Kathy because I can see Kathy. Kathy, how many triangles do you see there?
11.
Okay. There are 4 triangles.
Got that wrong.
They're just the 3 at the top meet the triangle shape, and then the whole shape itself is a triangle. So that gets you 4. And I share that with Kathy because she sent me a nice note yesterday, so I want to get back on her bad side because I was on her good side. It's just to keep in mind that as we go through this process, we're going to go through where people see different things. We're moving so fast. So just remind ourselves to slow the process down, because often things are right in front of us, but we're just not seeing them because we're moving so fast. And again, when we're talking triangles, that's one thing, but when we're talking about our lives or the lives of others, we need to slow it down. Something that you hopefully will have a chance to spend some time with Mr. Booker and others is going over the Life No factor. Just a reminder that the biggest thing that this whole circumstance has reminded us about is the issue of confidence. And what this has done is destabilized our confidence in lots of different ways. And our way to get past this is to boost up the confidence that we have in ourselves and others, that we really try to mitigate or remove this issue of fear factor, and we really work on success. But again, Mr. Booker will take some time to better explain that to you. But I really want you to just understand what we've done is really recognize that we really shouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about this fear, that really this is the time for faith. And this is the time for us to remind ourselves to be steady, to be committed, and to be comforted by the faith that we do have. That again, if we allow for fear to overcome us, then that's going to often bring on those mental health challenges that we don't want to deal with. But again, just recognizing our confidence, our faith, and our focus on success is what we should be paying attention to, especially at this critical time. Another thing that Mr. Booker will take some time to go over with you is the issue about the distance logic model. And what we're trying to highlight for you here is that a lot of us have made a mistake unbeknowing, and that we've taken the long way to get some stuff done. And this whole process has often helped us to settle our spirit and settle things down for us to look at things a little differently. And what this is trying to remind us is that the shortest distance between 2 points is a direct line. The best practice distance between 2 points is a direct line, and the most self-empowering distance between 2 points is a direct line. And again, we've done a lot of things in our life that have been just the opposite of that, and I want to give you some examples. So here's an example of us in the middle. We're a person, we do control our finances and our health and our education and our personal development, but family and friends, we primarily control our environment with our family and friends. We only go to church with our family and friends, and we only recreate with our family and friends. But a direct line, which means that all of those things, we should not have to go through one of the others to get to the other one we're trying to desire. So again, just going back, that's often what it is, and this is what we're suggesting that it should be. Now, here's another example looking at your family. You do talk to your father and your grandmother, but you only talk to your Aunt Susan and your cousin Mark if you talk to your grandmother. And if you talk to your grandmother because your mother and father split, you talk to grandma, but in order to talk to your own mother, you have to go through grandma, Uncle Peter, and then on to your niece Betty. And the problem is what happens when something happens to grandma. Then we feel the effect of that. And so we want to just encourage people to look at it this way, that any person in your life, there should be an opportunity for a direct line. So ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing this job 27 years, and that's a long time. But I've maintained the way I do all staff. And training's the same way. I come directly to you and have a conversation directly with you. So again, that's my attempt with 300 employees to try to have a direct line at least every couple of weeks, just to check in and because there's nothing better than having a direct contact than talking to the person directly and not with a surrogate. So again, just want you to keep that in mind. I have to be honest with you. I rolled this out about 2 weeks ago, and people that understand it seem to love it. And I said to myself, I've been working so hard, and we have spent tens of thousands of dollars with lots of different graphics to try to get the point across. And these people are now telling me that a straight line, one little line, has been more impactful than all than all that other stuff. But again, I'm trying to get over myself and being selfish, but whatever works. But I want to encourage you that for a lot of people, as they've begun to unbundle stuff, this has been helpful for them in the last 2 weeks, so I wanted to share it with you. The other thing that I want to just bring up for conversation is that I think we've seen some incidents over the last couple of weeks with our staff that have been really a little concerning. But I realize that the common theme with what we've seen that hasn't been good is that the person thought they were slick. And then I think that often we really try to do better than that as a person, and we try to do things that keep her safe. And I really want us to even try harder than that and really focus on trying to be successful. And which is a far leap from just trying to be slick. We've developed a slide to give you some examples of what it looks like when you're trying to be slick in your life domains. So in personal development, you lie, you steal, you lack accountability. In spirituality, you only come to your higher power in an emergency. You study, you practice sparingly. In your health, you don't follow directions and guidance. In education, you've plateaued. You think you've learned everything. In your environment, you live in places that are toxic and there's lots of tension. You come to things late. Recreation, your desire is to win all the time. Your family and friends, you have limited contact, no direct lines. Financially, we love to borrow, no savings, extensively using cash and or credit, don't donate, don't volunteer. So these are examples of what slickness looks like. And I think that I know that if we work real hard to limit the effort to be slick, and that we're intentional, that we want to be safe and we want others to be safe, but really we want to focus on success. That's a whole different situation. So just to give you an example, we had a staff person that brought somewhat of a minor alcoholic beverage into the program, and then knew that I was aware of it and said to me some cockamamie story that made no sense. When I came back and circled back and said, I understand all the details, they continued to keep giving me information, bits and pieces, trying to determine how much I did know. And reality is we all make mistakes, judgments. This is a very crazy time. It's very stressful. But the problem wasn't so much after we dealt with the issue of the purchase and the bringing it in. It was the slickness and the lying that became a major, major problem. So again, I would just encourage us all just to envision a world where we're on camera 24/7, 365. And we have to ask ourselves, would we be happy with that shot? Would we be happy with that take of that camera? And if not, then we should work on doing things differently. So again, I wanted to throw that out for us to consider as we look at trying to do things better going forth. I think all of our problems have come because we attempt to some degree or another to be slick, and it has come back to backfire against us. So again, some of the things that I would just encourage you to think about, something I found on the internet, take care of yourself. Because reality is so many, as you know, so many people are depending on you to get this right. So, drink a glass of water, take a shower, skip alcohol, especially while you're working. Avoid screen time before bed. Get some fresh air. Reflect on some of the things that matter, but take care of yourself, because a reality is that's so critical. And often when you get it right, you help so many other people get it right as well. Want to highlight one other thing as well, is that we realize that as we're journeying through this, and a lot of other agencies are not as fortunate as we are to be able to go through the process we're going through. We've had some staff that have come up COVID-19 positive. We've had a resident or two or three come up COVID positive as well. But we've journeyed through that. And that these things have helped. And what the success points I believe that we have here is this personal development and training, what we're doing today, and we do every 2 weeks. We've developed a manual that you'll be getting a hard copy of that relatively soon, of some techniques that you can use and understanding your role and boundaries. But the most important thing that I want to highlight that I think that is making this work is you. And I want to just encourage you to understand that you're on a journey, not a destination. You're never done doing. And when we think we're done doing, we should move on to something else where we feel that there's more to be done, and we're interested in doing what that looks like. So again, I think that's our success points here at Spectrum and Phoenix, and what we do is that we do train. We do put that training in writing, but again, we work on you and try to support you to be the best that you can be. Last but not least, I want to thank you for what you've done, you are doing, and what you will do, and I may not be aware of it and may not be around to say thank you. But we're getting through this process, and I think the tougher part has been done, and now we have to start envisioning what it looks like to get to the other side. But again, I want to thank you for all that you have done. I'm going to turn this over now to Joe or Booker or Cronauer or Dawn or Kathy, and allow you guys to